Hi friends, this is Joe, and this is episode number 160 of the Decahedron RPG podcast. And today's episode is about something kind of old school and something brand new. So what am I talking about? I am talking about my newest project, and it could be your project too. This is the Anchorite APA. And I've started this. Several other podcasters and listeners have joined in. And what it is an old school way of talking about our favorite hobby. So before YouTube, before podcasts, before Reddit, before Usenet, before the internet, there was paper. And people would write to each other on paper. So the APA is kind of like an internet discussion board on paper. So like I said, in the old days, before all that, there were these things called amateur press associations. Sometimes they were called many-to-manys. They started all the way back in the 19th century. And they continued through the 20th century, and they flourished and they grew. And there were ones about all sorts of things. Lots of them were about science fiction fans, and of course, then fantasy. Others became about other topics. And when the RPG scene emerged in 1974, as early as 1975, the best of the gaming APAs, Alarums and Excursions, was started by Lee Gold. And that's still going strong today, 50 years later. Like I said, an APA stands for Amateur Press Association. Sometimes it's many-to-many. What it is this thing where you, me, whoever, writes a zine. Yeah, it's pronounced zine because magazine, right? It's not zine. You don't say, oh, I'd like a copy of that magazine over there, please, right? So you write a zine, and as opposed to the old method where you, well, the new method, I guess, where you put it online, maybe on Drive-Thru, or maybe on Lulu, or maybe on Amazon, and hope that somebody will buy it. You send it to me, in this case. You send it to a central person, a central mailer, an official editor. They go by different titles. I like central mailer because it's descriptive of what the job actually is. I don't think official editor is right because we don't edit anything. But you send it to the central mailer, and they take your zine, and they take the zines from all the other members, and they just combine them into one volume. That volume is the APA. And then they get it copied, they get it bound. Bound is fancy, might probably just staples, In the old days, copying meant like mimeographs, like the old ditto machines, or other forms, ditto machine was a spirit duplicator, or a mimeograph, whatever. But then as photocopiers became more and more prevalent, photocopying became the way. You just send it in, the central mailer collates it, and sends a copy to each of the members. So you have your built-in audience. The difference here is that whereas a zine you might put out there in hopes that people are going to pay you for it, nobody's paying you for this. If anything, you're paying because you have to buy your copy of the APA. On the flip side, that means whatever you write is yours completely to own. You don't have to promise not to publish it elsewhere or anything like that. Yeah, you get it, you read it, and you start writing your next zine, right? And it's this built-in community of the members, because we don't make this available for everyone to read. It's just the people in that group who get a copy of it, and they read it, and then they tell you what they think. That sounds rude. Very nicely, normally, they tell you what they thought of whatever you submitted. So like a typical zine, at least for the Anchorite, we'll usually start with some, biographical stuff. Hey everyone, it's been a great month. I won the lottery, and now I have $143 billion, whatever. Clearly, I'm making that up. And then you go into the body of whatever creative work you want to share. Hey, I came up with this new idea for character creation in Dungeons and Dragons. Let me tell you about it. And then, you write that up however you want. And then another section would be what we call mailing comments, because an issue of the APA is traditionally called a mailing. So you're commenting on the previous mailing. But anyway, you'd say things like, hey, John, I loved your article about critical hits in Tunnels and Trolls. You'd say, hey, Mary, your story was marvelous. I loved it. What happens next or whatever. And I guess that brings to the other point. Even though the Anchorite is a gaming a gaming APA, it doesn't mean that the only thing you can ever talk about is gaming stuff, right? We are humans. Humans are not one-dimensional, and you are welcome to talk about other stuff in addition to gaming. Even if your gaming comments are limited to what you're saying to other people about their gaming stuff, that's still good enough. So who does this appeal to? It appeals to people who like to write, who like to create in words and paper and all that fun stuff, right? But maybe you don't want to put it out there, right? You don't think you're good enough to put it into a magazine. Actually, are there any gaming magazines left in print? You want that built-in audience. You want that sense of community. At least that's what appeals to it about me, right? That's what I find appealing about it. So the Anchorite, the name comes from, there used to be this podcasting service called Anchor, where if you wanted to start a podcast, it was very easy. It was free. You just started recording and you put it on Anchor. And there was this group of mostly old school OSR type gamers that coalesced and formed this group. I'm part of that group, and I don't consider myself exclusively an OSR player, so don't read too much into that word. If I'm going to be in the Anchorite, not only is there going to be OSR content, I'm going to talk about newer stuff like Fudge and Fate and Dungeon World and even non-fantasy stuff like Traveler and Mercenary Spies and Private Eyes and all that stuff. So anyway, there was this service called Anchor. Eventually got bought out by Spotify, and it's something else now. But yeah, there was this group that were called, and having no other name for ourselves, someone just started calling us Anchorites, and it kind of stuck. And so when I went to start the APA, originally I was even going to say, am I stealing that term? Am I worthy enough to take that term and use it for, this project? So I toyed with the idea of calling it Staystone, which is kind of like Anchor, but it has a medieval feel to it, kind of a Vikingish feel, I think. But I was talking to some of the other groups, that are part of that Anchorite community, and they were like, no, I really like calling it the Anchorite. And I think it's interesting that we have the definite article there in front, and I'm wondering if it's going to be like The Dragging Magazine, where the word the drops out sometimes in the future. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So full credit for this originally goes to Daniel of the Bandits Keep podcast and YouTube channel. Be sure to look him up, Bandits Keep. Great content on both sides of the coin. And last year he said, wouldn't it be great to start a newsletter project where everybody, writes a newsletter and we keep a list of everyone in the group and you just mail out a copy to everyone in the group and they all mail out a copy. And I was like, hey, Daniel, that's a great idea. But there's this thing called an APA. And I think that would be even better. But life happens, and Daniel didn't get to move forward with the newsletter project. So I said, hey, do you mind if I take it and run with it and start an APA? He said, no, you have my blessing. In fact, he's one of the members. So, yeah, that's how it started. That's why I give full props to Daniel for having the original idea and then for letting me run with it. So, Daniel, if you're watching and or listening, thanks much for the inspiration. You are very awesome. Then the other thing you might have noticed, I said you mail it out. So this is going to be a paper type thing. You are going to get this physically in the mail every 6 weeks, I think is what we're going to be shooting for to begin with, not once a month. If you're a member of the group, you get a copy every 6 weeks. It shows up in your mailbox and you're like, yeah, and it's something that you can hold and you can flip through the pages and you can scribble on if you're the type of person that writes in books, which I think makes you chaotic neutral at best. If not fully chaotic evil. But if my mother ever caught me writing in a book, she would have just, bam! No, Joe does not write in books. So it's this paper product. We are making exceptions for people who live in like the UK, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, whatever. Actually, wherever you live. I was just naming English-speaking countries, but there are English speakers and writers that live in other countries, of course. So if you're not around, because that mailing would be so expensive, we would let we will let those people just join what we call electronically, and we'd send them a PDF, and there'd be no charge for that because it doesn't cost us anything to send out a PDF. Yeah, so that's the APA. That is the Anchorite APA, Amateur Press Association. If it sounds interesting to you, if you want to be a member of a group like this, if you like to write, you like getting stuff in the mail and opening it up and seeing your name and the stuff you wrote and hearing what everybody had to say about what you wrote, you might want to do this. And the link will be in the show notes, and the link will be in, the show notes. Oh, if you're on YouTube, it will be on screen right now. But if you're one of those that helps to hear it, it's sites.google.com/view/Anchorite. And Anchorite is ANCHORITE. You know, like an anchor with ITE at the end. But yeah, so sites.google.com/view/Anchorite. We'll get you the webpage where you'll find all the information you want. We'd love to have you. We have 7 slots full right now, 2 possible maybes to bring us up to 9. The maximum, we have plenty of room. Don't worry about it. If you're interested, go to that website. There's an email address there, anchoriteapa@gmail.com. That's also on the screen. Send a question there and I will answer it. I am very excited about this. The other members of the group are also very excited about this. So if this is the type of thing that appeals to you, writing, reading other people's stuff, check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed if that's your thing. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching and or listening. And until next time, happy gaming, happy life. Bye.